The day school was abuzz late last month when Marjorie Masse, a math interventionist at the school, was recognized by the National Inspired2Educate program. Principal Regan was on hand, as well as Superintendent Bill Olson, when Kermit Randa, CEO of the talent management software company People Admin, which is the organization who funds the project, explained how honorees are selected. He then read Masse's award-winning essay.
We created this program called Inspired2Educate, right? Because we wanted to thank educators, teachers like you have every day, to celebrate the people that helped them become teachers, where in some cases when they were just your age, when they decided teaching is going to be important to me. So in just a minute, I'm going to read a story to you that I'd love for you to listen to every single word I say, because it's really important. But as we do this, people nominate themselves. They write in every month. They write in stories about how someone helped them become a teacher, right? Or help them be inspired to educate. We get hundreds of these each month from all over the country. And this last month in August, Miss Masse's was the most inspiring story. So if you wouldn't mind, can I read that and talk to you about how an education can change somebody's life? Can I read that now? Is that okay? All right. So work with me here. This is going to be, I'm going to read the words here, okay? So here we go. I was one of those kids. My second grade teacher complained, "She cries all the time. She never sits still. Her handwriting is atrocious." I was holding my mother's hand while this conversation proceeded, and it was hard to believe that this would become my lucky day. Then I saw Mrs. Smith, our effervescent gym teacher, walking towards us. Catching the tone of the meeting, she suggested a solution to those behaviors that had become the low-end benchmark for my peers. Marjorie's behaviors, Mrs. B would teach the class, were the best ways to earn black marks on a behavior chart that was otherwise glistening with other metallic stars. None of them were mine. From where I sat in the classroom next to the teacher's desk, I was separated from all the other kids by a piece of plywood. I would count the stars that I never got and notice the pattern made by the uninterrupted black check marks next to my name. Artistic interpretations aside, there in the hallway stood my mother, Mrs. Smith, and Mrs. B, discussing my misdemeanors and their likely motivations. I was unsure while doing cartwheels from one desktop to another desktop was a bad thing. I was the only one of my friends who could pull that off. Nor could I understand why all the other kids could make their pencils work so well. Apparently, though, these were big problems in second grade. So it went on like this for 15 minutes, Mrs. B listening to my transgressions and my mother defending our family values while Mrs. Smith listening, when at last I thought I heard one good thing. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you so much. "You could send her to me," she said. "I have plenty to do in the gymnasium. She can help me polish vaults. She could help me just spend some time on the balance beam. She loves the balance beam. She can join the other gym classes. Then maybe she'll be more prepared to come back to your class." What? Did I get this correctly? Probably not. I usually don't get things right. Am I really going to get to go to the gym? Walking home, my mom asked me why I cried so much. I told her that I didn't know, but I know now. I could not read yet. I could not write yet. I hated sitting still there all day long being told what I did wrong and not being allowed to sit with my friends. She asked me to not cry so much, and I did try, and it got easier. The next day, I walked to school and pointed my mind towards not crying. I don't know if it was my handwriting or not being able to tell a B from a D that set her off, but before I knew it, Mrs. B was marching me down the hall. I thought we were headed to the principal's office. Bad place to go. But instead, I went to the annex, the gym, and there I was delivered instructions. Bring her back in time for music. Mrs. Smith took my hand and led me into what would become my second grade sanctuary. In the sunlight, we polished vaults, stacked and cleaned mats. I was asked to put them in piles of 10. I climbed ropes and I practiced balance beam routines. We worked. Stravinsky and Mozart played. While the other children arrived, I played. Most clearly, I remember a day when I was practicing the swan jump, followed by a round-off dismount. Mrs. Smith asked me if I knew what my routine would be worth in a grade 4 gymnastics meet. She walked me through each of the moves that I could consistently make, and we figured out that I needed 3/4 of a point to win a grade 4 meet. I was finally good at something at school. She showed me a book with moves and values. There, under the beam, I learned to add 1/4 and 1/2. Up to the beam, I practiced while Mrs. Smith talked about fractions and gravity, momentum, and muscle cells. She spoke of history and maps. I jumped and I twirled, and I began to know that the world was interesting. I became the school's left wing in soccer. I was only one of three girls to play 4 intramural sports. I co-wrote petitions, one allowing girls to wear pants and one allowing girls to play football. I began to do well in science and then math. I could read a little by grade 4. I crept through high school, gaining most of my self-esteem through sports. I tried to go to college 3 times and finally taught myself to read. At 27, I completed a BS degree in microbiology, and at 39, I got my master's in education. And that's really hard to do, folks. I am one of the lucky ones. Someone saw me as worthwhile. Someone understood that in all kinds of minds there is capability. Someone tried and cared deeply about a student who couldn't read or write yet. I wish I could have written Mrs. Smith a thank you note back then. Furthermore, I would want her to know that now as a teacher, I understand that the child whose writing is ineligible, the negative self-talk that defeats a student before he or she even tries, and I know that every statement begins with I can't, must end with the word yet. On a wall in my classroom, there are 3 3-foot high letters and an exclamation point. Y-E-T, yet. It is the biggest word in the room. It is there because yet takes away limits. It's there for each of my students when they think that they can't do something. It is there for me when I can't find a way to reach a struggling student. It is there because of Mrs. Smith. And thank you, thank you, thank you to Mrs. Smith. Isn't that an amazing story by Miss Masse? It's truly amazing. And it tells us why we should never get up. Has anybody ever seen the words yet in her room? Yeah? Yeah. And it tells us why we can never give up, right? Whether it's in school or whether it's in sports or whether you're trying to learn something new, it's always hard, right? But I love that phrase that anything that starts with I can't should end with yet. And that's something I think we can all learn from Mrs. Masse, that we understand potential that you don't even have. So the takeaway here is when she was your age, right? Someone reached out to her. She went and found a teacher and connected and found a way and found a great path to bring her here to you today and all of the hundreds and hundreds of people she gets to teach, just like you today. That's pretty incredible. So it all starts with believing in yourself. And remember, I can instead of I can't, or if it's too hard, just put yet at the end of that, and you'll get there. So you're all very lucky to have Mrs. Masse, as you know, Principal Regan, Superintendent Olson, and all the other great teachers and administrators. I am honored and humbled to be here to share with Ms. Masse the award. So it's a great achievement for her, and it's a great achievement for the school, and it's a great achievement for all of you. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to go ahead and present this award just in a second. And what's going to happen after we do this, we're going to take a bunch of pictures and stuff. But you know what? We're going to put this out on the internet, and it's going to be on stories all over the country. People all over the country are going to read about your school, Ms. Masse, Superintendent Olson, Principal Regan, and all the great things you're doing. So this is a really, really big deal. So would you guys join me in thanking Ms. Masse and congratulating her? Would you do that? Go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I guess it's this one. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming here today, and I just want to ask you, I know you've been sitting a while and listening to people talk for a few minutes, but I want to thank a few people. I want to thank the people that hired me here, because it is a wonderful place to be. We have wonderful students, we have wonderful teachers, we have wonderful staff, and we have wonderful administrators. It is a great place to be. I want to thank the people at People Admin, Amanda, Christina, and Kermit for coming up from Texas to give this award to Westford and to me. I want to thank Patty Stoker and the Huffington Post for publishing good news and keeping education in focus. That's important. I want to thank a whole bunch of teachers who helped me succeed. I didn't do it by myself. And I want to thank my husband Andrew and my best friend Alice, who always tell me to keep writing and rewriting and rewriting. And guess what? Rewriting again. And I want to tell you how I got this award. I saw the contest. I thought about Mrs. Smith, who was a special teacher and who cared a lot about me. And so I wrote the essay, and then I edited the paper. And I edited it again. And I read it out loud. And I changed a few words. And finally, I submitted the essay to the contest in June. And I didn't win. Yet. And in July, I looked at my essay and I thought, well, I already edited the paper. But maybe I could keep trying a little bit. So I made a few changes. And I submitted the essay in July. And I didn't win. Yet. So I took the paper and I took a really hard look at it, and I struggled with the beginning of it. And then I made the beginning a little more interesting. And I took out a few of the phrases in the middle that were kind of weak. Didn't choose my words quite right. And then I made a few changes to the end of the essay. Made it a little bit more definite at the end. And I submitted it in August. And I won. So the really important message here isn't that I didn't win in June and I didn't win in July. It's that I didn't win yet. And I teach my students that. But more importantly, here in Westford, we have a community of learners. We have administrators who are still learning. We have teachers who are still learning. We have staff who are still learning. And we have students who are still learning. And if we look at each other and we say, oh, you can't do that, period. Or you can't do this, period. Or I can't do this, period. Or I don't like that, period. We won't be better. But when we look at each other and we see what each of us can do, and we say, we haven't done this yet. We don't like this yet. This isn't easy yet. We take the limits off each other. And then we can be better than we were yesterday, and better than we were the day before. And we can struggle together, and that's okay, as long as we keep improving, because there is always room for improvement. And we're not done learning yet. And I want to thank all of the students here who helped me become a better teacher every single day. Thank you.
Ms. Masse will receive $1,000 from the Inspired2Educate program to be used toward her own professional development. The day school will also receive $1,000, which they can use toward their or the district's mission. For Westford Cat, I'm Patty Stalker.